know, we try to do something crazy on this show. We try to inform our audience. And to help us do that today, we're going to bring on Ari Berman, because he's going to talk to us about Jim Messina, a guy you almost never hear about, but you really should, because I think it is incredibly telling as to the Obama White House's stance on issues and where they're headed. So Ari, of course, is with The Nation. Welcome back to the Young Turks, man. How you doing?
Hey, Cenk. Good to talk to you.
All right, great to talk to you.
Usually I say good to see you nowadays, but now it's good to talk to you. So
yeah, right back to old school. All right, for the people at home who don't know Jim Messina, tell us what his position is now, and where did he come from, and what does he do?
Sure. Well, Jim Messina is Obama's campaign manager for the re-election campaign. He was previously Deputy Chief of Staff in the Obama White House, top deputy to Rahm Emanuel, and before that was a top aide to Montana Senator Max Baucus. And I had a big profile of Messina that came out, I think, a few months ago at this point. And I'm assuming that you want to talk about him because the Obama campaign is ramping up things right now.
Yeah, I want to know more about him. So, first of all, tell me about, I loved your article on it, and I think it's instructive to how they're going to run the campaign, et cetera. So, tell me about that article a little bit. Tell me about, for example, what happened with Campaign for America's Future.
Sure. Well, I mean, let me step back a little bit. So Messina was brought into the White House basically as Rahm's top deputy because he had performed this role for Max Baucus and basically had tried to keep Max Baucus's opponents, particularly his opponents on the left, in line when Baucus was a senator and Messina worked for him. So Rahm brought Messina in to do a very similar thing. And what happened is that Messina was tasked with being the top liaison to this thing called the Common Purpose Project, which was a meeting of all the big progressive groups in Washington, a very important weekly strategy meeting that everyone wanted to be invited to. And early on in March 2009, the Campaign for America's Future, which is a progressive group in Washington, launched a campaign called Dog the Blue Dogs, basically to pressure conservative Blue Dog Democrats to support President Obama's budget, knowing that the Blue Dogs would become a major obstacle in the months and years ahead for the Obama White House. And basically, Messina called the leaders of the Campaign for America's Future into the White House and dressed them down and told them that if they wanted to join this Common Purpose Project, they had to drop the Blue Dog campaign, which they subsequently did. And that was basically became the MO for the way the White House dealt with progressive groups, which is that you better toe the line with us or you will be frozen out of our strategy. And that was Messina's MO going forward.
All right, and see, to me, that's not just important for Messina and what he does, and he's considered, as you pointed out in the article, the fixer. That's not the kind of fixer I'm interested in when you fix progressives, so-called. But I'm interested in that strategy, right?
Yeah.
So the idea is you trade access for playing team ball, right? So one of my questions, I guess, is why do the groups do it? Why do they need that access? Why is that so important to them?
Well, you probably have to ask the groups themselves. I mean, at the beginning of the Obama administration, it was a big thing to be part of the team. There was this ambitious effort to pass all these different pieces of legislation, and the view was that you had to be on the inside if you wanted to make a difference, and if you were frozen out of the access game, that you wouldn't have any influence on the inside. And so all the different progressive groups, by and large, bought into that inside game and really took really what happened is they took their marching orders from the Obama White House. And that was a very different approach than the approach Obama talked about during the campaign, which is mobilize people from the bottom up to change Washington. Instead, what happened is a bunch of people in Washington sat around the table and gave everyone else their marching orders. And I think that inside game really backfired a lot when it came to health care reform, when it came to these issues where you needed that outsized mobilization. And it just wasn't there because that wasn't the administration's perspective. But on the other side, the right and the Tea Party did have that mobilization, and that's why they were able to affect the narrative in such a dramatic way.
Jane Hampshire is a person who gets a lot of heat in some progressive circles. Some progressive circles love her, of course. She talks about the veal pen and how the White House keeps people in order. this is it, isn't it?
Well, yeah, Jane termed the veal pen because of the Common Purpose Project, because she saw how this process was working, and she was frustrated by it, by trading this access. And I don't think really at the end of the day, I mean, one of the things that was interesting about writing this article was that a lot of the progressive groups have subsequently rethought the strategy. They realized that the inside game, they didn't get nearly as much out of it as they would have wanted, that the administration made a mistake in just pursuing the inside game and dropping really the outside game, although the administration would deny they've done that. And the question here for the Obama campaign now vis-a-vis the Obama White House is, yes, will there be an outside game? Will there be actual avenues for input? Will it be grassroots focused? Or will it be much more like the Obama White House of the first 2 years, which is very top-down, very conventional, very much do what I say or you'll be out of the loop?
Right.
And we don't know the answer to that yet.
Right. And everybody should know Campaign for America's Future is no longer well received at the White House. I don't know what their status is in terms of meetings and what meetings they get invited to or not, but I know that they fervently disagree with the White House on many occasions. So they have certainly changed tracks. And I think they were among the first to do so, to be fair to them. So now, let's talk about the enforcer aspect of Jim Messina. Is he an enforcer against Republicans? I mean, this is a tough guy inside the Obama administration. He probably goes and cracks their skulls, right? Or could it be that he goes actually after progressives and liberals?
Well, I think that, he has cracked some skulls against Republicans, no doubt. But when he worked for Baucus, it seemed to me that his major preoccupation was progressive critics of Baucus, that they really thought that those people, obviously Baucus did a number of things that angered progressives in Montana and elsewhere, voting for the Bush tax cuts, voting for the Medicare privatization bill, not only voting for those things, but really shepherding them through the Senate and voting for a lot of other stuff people didn't like. And so Max really had a target on his back, and Messina made sure that there was as little criticism of Baucus as possible. Not only that, he actually tried to get the executive director of the Montana Democratic Party fired, which was pretty unprecedented meddling in internal party business. But not only that, then in the Obama administration, I mean, again, this was something that Rahm asked him to do, and that was his skill set, which is, okay, you will work with the progressive groups, but working with them also meant making sure that they stayed in line. And if they didn't stay in line, they would get thrown out. And we saw that happen not only with health care reform, but also with, for example, Don't Ask, Don't Tell, which is another thing that Messina worked on. And, gay rights groups who wanted the administration to push harder or didn't believe they really had a strategy on Don't Ask, Don't Tell until very late in the game were essentially shut out of the White House strategy on that bill.
All right, Ari, you say it, and from time to time people say it, that I'm sure that they are tough on Republicans. I don't believe that at all. I'm going to be honest with you. Look, you have great examples of how tough they are on Democrats and progressives and liberals, et cetera. And I've read countless examples of Rahm Emanuel, Jim Messina, Tim Guide, all these guys attacking Democrats. I've never heard of them attacking Republicans. Do you have a single instance of Jim Messina attacking a Republican?
Well, there is an example in my piece. I talk about this ad that the Baucus campaign ran against their Republican opponent back when Max was up for re-election in 2002. That was essentially a very anti-gay ad. And so that was an example of them of being tough on Republicans, but probably not in the way that many progressives would like.
Okay, first of all, I was talking about when he was at the White House. When he runs a campaign for a Democrat, I would imagine at some point he's going to have to say something against Republicans. But when he did, look at the example you give. He tried to paint the Republican as basically gay, right? Ha ha, you're gay.
Yeah, I mean it did work, but yeah, I mean it was a pretty loathsome tactic to use. No, I mean, in the Obama White House, I mean, this is the irony, and you made a very good point about Rahm and about Messina and that school of politics, which is they seem to be much more preoccupied with fighting their progressive opponents than fighting their conservative opponents. Now, that may change. It may be that now that Messina's in the re-election campaign and his job is to get reelected, that he will focus all that energy on the Republicans. We don't know what will happen. That's the hope, at least. But at least based on the work he's done so far, he has not been someone who has dealt with progressive criticism very well.
Unless they massively change direction, they're going to lose. Because look at who they bring in to run their campaign. A guy whose main expertise is hitting their own side. I mean, what a perfect example. What a perfect example of Democratic campaigning, right?
Yeah, I mean, or unless he adopts a different strategy. I mean, I have been, since my article came out, I have been moderately encouraged by what the Obama campaign has been doing. I mean, I do think there is an effort to try to reconstitute some of that grassroots energy that powered the campaign back in 2008. I think the difficulty is not only the personnel on the campaign, but it's the difficulty of the personnel in Washington, which is that so much of what the Obama campaign does will be decided by what the Obama administration does. And right now, Obama still remains a very cautious, a very calculating leader, and that's going to make any sort of grassroots activism the Obama campaign wants to do that much more difficult. If Obama is seen as this very conciliatory guy who's not standing up to the Republicans and not outlining an alternative vision.
You missed the third C. He's cautious, he's calculating, he's also just conservative. You don't accidentally bring in the most conservative so-called Democrats you could possibly find in the world and have them run your White House and run your campaign, whether it's Emanuel, whether it's Geithner, whether it's Bill Daley, whether it's Larry Summers, whether it's Jim Messina, whether it's all these guys. Whoopsie-doopsie, I just picked all the conservatives. I mean, when he does grassroots outreach now, I said in the middle of your answer that it's all fake. Because Jim Messina is not a grassroots guy. The only thing he's ever done with the grassroots is mow them down. He's the lawnmower. So
yeah, I mean, and that's an interesting thing. I mean, and I know there are people on the Obama campaign that are committed to trying to do grassroots politics based on their backgrounds and based on the work that they've done, and the question will be, can those people break through? Can all the volunteers? I mean, I've seen some evidence that there are a number of volunteers stepping forward. There are a number of new donors stepping forward. Can they shape the campaign in their own image, somewhat like they did in 2008? Or will it just be, as you said, a very top-down conservative campaign, but that one that may still be able to win simply because of who the Republican opponent is? And I think that's what they're basically banking on, that the Republicans will do their work for them, get the base motivated, and that who's running the campaign and what the Obama White House is doing won't matter as much.
I've seen this a million times, whether it's sports, whether it's politics, whether it's the Iraq War, whether it's anything. It's called hubris. They think, we're not going to lose. We're going to be running against a dingbat. The Republicans are going to be so weak that it doesn't matter how much unemployment we have. It doesn't matter how much we ignored the grassroots. It doesn't matter how much we didn't deliver on our promises to our base. We're going to win anyway. That's the strategy. It's a terrible losing strategy. Last thing, you watch, okay? The two things that they'll run on is we're going to get rid of the Bush tax cuts and we're going to do immigration reform. Now, they save those for the campaign so they can pretend to be progressive. But if they were actually progressive, they would have done them already. Instead, they're going to say, just give us one more term, and then we'll come and do those things for you that you voted for us on.
Yeah, I mean, they had a chance to do both. I think immigration reform was always going to be a heavy lift, but certainly repealing the Bush tax cuts is something they could have done and should have pushed harder for as part of any agreement. I mean, what's interesting to me is, exactly, the agenda for an Obama second term really has not been elucidated by the White House. What he would do if given 4 more years, I don't think they've really laid that out that clearly. Maybe it's too early on. Maybe they're just preoccupied by the debt ceiling, but I do think they are going to have a forward-leaning agenda to contrast with the GOP that's different from the GOP's agenda if they want to motivate people to get out and vote.
Yeah. At this late juncture, I love how we're pointing out to the Democrats. They might want to have a different agenda than the GOP.
Well, it's not that late, to be fair. I mean,
no,
come
it's
on.
late. It's late. They think that again, like sports, you don't turn it on in the fourth quarter. If you you don't turn it on in the playoffs.
First quarter. We are still in the first quarter here. Let's
no. I'm talking about the term. I'm talking about his term. I'm not talking about the race.
Oh, okay. I thought you were talking about the race.
No. I get that. But
okay.
You
I was
can't,
like, what are you talking about?
No, you can't. You can't come to the end of your term in your final year of your term and then go say ignore the first 3 years. Okay. Now don't listen to what I did. Listen to what I say I'm going to do in the next time.
No, of course not. And saying you're going to do things that when you had an opportunity to do them is also not an argument that's probably going to hold. I mean, he had every opportunity to do as much as he wanted with those majorities and with his mandate. They got a lot done, but I would argue that the things they got done were not as big as they could have been and not as transformative as they could have been if you look at the majority they had and the opportunity they had when they first got in there after the 2008 election.
All right. Ari Berman from The Nation, as always, excellent reporting. Thank you, man.
Thanks, Cenk. I appreciate it.